Hey guys, how is everyone? JJ is finishing up some stuff and then he is going to come out here. I'm just trying to get the videos pulled up. Hope everybody is doing well today. Hi Fred. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting topic today since the money is gone. And JJ is going to come and talk about that with you guys. Ooh, we're already at 79 people. 83, I love it. Hi Mary. Hi Engine Joe. Hi Mike Fisher. I talked to you today on LinkedIn. Hello Sarah Kay. Wireless expert Valerie Clark. Hello. Hey guys. As I said, JJ's wrapping up something and then he is going to get out here so we can get everything going. Answer some emails today. I know we won't be able to get to all of them, but we're gonna get it to as many as we can. Hey guys. I've got to hide some people already. We have not mailed the packages yet because we had so many and I had to finish doing them today. But I can announce that all of the JJ the CPA t-shirts have been accounted for. Pretty much all of the You've Never Met a CPA Quite Like Me are gone. And we do have a little bit of koozies left, but JJ did something early in the morning that I'm sure he's going to tell you guys all about. But he has done something to be able to get some more merch out to people that you can order. So he will let you know about that. Hi Nancy, happy Thursday. It's Friday Eve. He did not, Daryl, JJ did not cut my hair last night. Nope. We got busy and eating dinner and we didn't get to it. Oh, hi Diana Beck. So good to see you here. You guys are so awesome. Lots of interesting stuff has happened today, so there'll be lots to talk about. Hello, Joshua Flores. So awesome. Howdy from Texas. Well, howdy from Oklahoma. And the email is jj@jjthecpahelp.com. Yvette, I don't know the answer to that, but JJ will be here. And hey, there's Seth. Seth Denson is on. If you guys are not following Seth, you need to. You need to go follow him on his YouTube channel. He is putting out some amazing stuff. He's on Fox News. He's on Cheddar News. He is on the Daily Ledger with Graham Ledger on OAN, and he is the healthcare guy, and he's just killing it. So you guys need to go follow Seth Denson. And his kids are absolutely adorable. He posted the cutest video today of his little boy riding one of the Roombas on his Twitter. So you guys need to go follow him. He's awesome. Hello from New York and Illinois. I'm so glad that you guys are all here. I'm not normally on this side of the camera, especially alone. He's kind of left me alone in here too long. In Alabama, I love it that you guys are just from all over the place. Tina Beard, home of Superman. I love it. My little boy, or he's not little anymore, he's a senior in high school. He is a big Superman fan. Maine. I've always wanted to go to Maine. That's one of the states that I really want to go to. I've never been there and I want to. We got somebody from Washington, Florida, and you know, believe it or not, I've never been to Florida and I really want to go there too. Illinois. Yeah, Maine is beautiful. I mean, just from the pictures I've seen, it's absolutely gorgeous. North Dakota. Never been there either. We've been to a lot of places, but we've never been there. Mississippi. I have been there. Oh, he said he's almost ready. That's good. Because I'm just out here blabbering to people. Pennsylvania now. I actually lived in Pennsylvania, and I got to go meet Punxsutawney Phil and go to Punxsutawney. But I lived there for a couple of years. My son, Shane, my middle one, was actually born in Pennsylvania. But I am an Okie born and raised. Darkwater Megs is on. I have something so awesome. I have to grab it and show you guys. It's more entertaining than me. So give me just a second. Okay, this is the coolest thing in the world. Like, I went and bought one for my son just because it's so cool. This is one thing I really love about this is that we're getting to meet so many new people and we're getting to support your small businesses. Darkwater Megs has been on the YouTube channel pretty much, I think, since the beginning, whenever all this started a couple of weeks ago. And yesterday I caught him online and I said, "What is it that you do?" And he told us what he did online. And then he emailed me and he said, "Hey, I sent you guys a package." And he sent it to the office and I just haven't been up there because we've been, quarantined. But I went up there last night at 8 o'clock at the night to pick this up, but we didn't open it up until this morning. You guys, this is a shark tooth and it's a Megalodon shark tooth. And this is what Darkwater Megs does. He gets these from the deep blue and he sells them. This is a shark tooth. Like, how awesome. So awesome. And huge. Like it is huge. And it comes with this beautiful little stand that's burned. And it has his branding on the bottom. And then he gave us all this cool information about the shark. So I ordered one for my 14-year-old son because he is gonna flip out. So I was thinking that JJ would be back in here by the time I did all that. But thank you so much for sending that. It's so awesome. So awesome. All right, I've missed out on some comments. Fred, your brother was born on Groundhog Day. I love it. Yes, Mike, the best way to get your question answered is to email it. We've been trying to answer all of the previous day's emails the next day just because there have been so many of them. So do email it to us and then we will try to get to it. We won't get to it today, but we will try to get to it. So. Oh, I love that. Jason from Darkwater Megs. You guys have got to go check him out. His website is awesome. His Facebook page is awesome. And as a social media manager, Jason, I'm going to tell you that you need to be on Instagram because this would go crazy on Instagram and you need to be on there. People would love to see your photos and stuff that you have. It is JJ at jjthecpahelp.com. And I'll put it in comments real quick too. Maybe. I don't have my glasses on. There we go. Email is in the comments. But it's JJ at jjthecpahelp.com. You're just here for the JJ's rant. Well, I'm sure that we will get one today. He's got some cool stuff and that he's working on and that he's done and that he was up all night working on. So I'll let him share that with you, but it's really awesome. I'm 165 people already. You guys are awesome. Make sure that you're giving a thumbs up while you're here. That just pushes our video up higher so that more people will see it so then we can share more of JJ with the rest of the world. And make sure that you are subscribed as well. Hey PB, had a happy time at happy hour yesterday. Yay, I'm so glad. It was so awesome to just kind of have a day to just relax and really get to talk to you guys. So that was a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again. I agree, Monica. JJ is the champion of fairness and a very important little guy. Yep. The big guys aren't recognizing our importance. I agree. And that's why we try to support small businesses as much as we possibly can. I believe they're really the backbone of America. That's the American dream, to have your own business. And so more people need to be supporting them. And I hate it that there is no money right now, and I hope whatever meeting it is that the administration is going to have changes that, because yeah, I have my own opinions on that, but we won't go into that. All right. Yeah, I'm so glad. It's so awesome to see so many familiar faces. Matthew Conrad, Punxsutawney, no way, my mom was born and raised there. Pennsylvania is absolutely gorgeous. I would never live there again. Nothing against the Pennsylvanians, but Oklahoma is just home to me, but it is absolutely gorgeous. And it was the first time I ever got to see a real life Amish person, and I got to go and go to their house and meet their kids, it was interesting because I didn't know this until I lived there, but in the area that I lived, which was for the people who are from Pennsylvania here, I lived in Du Bois and Brockway. In the Amish community, the children don't speak English, they speak German, and so then they don't speak to strangers. And I just found that to be interesting. Here he is, finally.
Wow, you have done phenomenal.
We probably lost 20,000 subscriptions now. People are like, oh gosh.
Oh my gosh, whatever.
All right, he's here.
Whatever. Hey, will you throw that thumb up on that last video that I did? How's everybody today? Sorry for running a little late. I'm gonna be bringing more of a message of urgency, and I will need your help. So I've heard all the wonderful names that are on with us today already, Fred and Nancy, and so thankful to, look at this, the Megalodon.
Yep,
I mean, are you kidding me? This is just unbelievable. Thank you we've gotten some cards, and let's see, my head's kind of caught off there. We've gotten some cards and lots of emails and lots of messages of thanks, which is very appreciative. I was up all night. I went to sleep, I think at 6:30 a.m. And we have some circumstances right now I'm sure you're all aware of, which is we are out of EIDL money that happened, I want to say around 4 a.m. because I was actually generating an email for a client of mine to send to them to say, okay, since you're not going to probably be able to get the PPP, let's go get the EIDL. They just didn't qualify for it. And I also had another client that around midnight, I was sending the documents to their banker so that they could get their PPP funding. And when basically we wake up, as I had feared, the PPP funding has run out. Now, I know that potentially there's going to be another round of funding that will come into play. So a couple of things. I understand that people have questions, but this is a true message of urgency, because before the next round of funding comes out, the $250 billion, this is going to sound really pompous and probably a little bit above my pay grade, just being a CPA from Oklahoma City, JJ the CPA. But I just released videos that I'm sure will never make it to the individuals that I hoped it would make it to, but I have sent and created a special video message to Senator Lankford from Oklahoma, U.S. Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma. I have sent a specific video to Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. I have sent a specialized video message to Speaker Pelosi, and I was bold enough to send a message to President Donald Trump. All of them were a message of thanks. None of them were a message of negativity. They were quick and to the point, and the message was this: a message of thanks, but a message of urgency, and this is where I'll need your help. The message of urgency is that the next round of funding needs to only go to the small business and the proprietorships. What really got me fired up is that we opened this, okay? We got this gift and this wonderful letter, okay? And from Jason at darkwettermegs.com. And he had sent me this letter on the 4th of April. We've not been at the office, so he was kind enough to say, hey, I mailed you something. So we went and got it and opened it, and wonderful letter, very generous. And this is a fossil from a Megalodon, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, that used to get up to 60 feet long. I mean, this is like dinosaur, legit, straight out from the mouth of one of these Megalodons. So I was really taken aback. I had immediately sent an email to Jason, and Jason's on with us.
He is.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. You're the inspiration of what I'm doing here. So it is a little bit bold. Look into the camera.
You're still looking through the camera.
Anyways, bottom line is this, Jason. We sent a message, an email of thanks, blown away, really appreciative. And Jason emailed back, if you don't mind me sharing. Jason, am I able to share
Yeah,
what?
he's already been telling people.
Okay. Jason emailed back and said he had all of his records ready to go on April 2nd, the day before the actual funding occurred, which was April 3rd. So he had everything into his bank, and he had been at that bank for a number of years, which means that he knew the bank, okay? And he got a message that today, that because the PPP funding ran out, they're not going to be helping him. That is a tragedy. It is nearly a crime. I am not pleased about it in any way, shape, or form. Yes?
After he was told that it was approved.
Okay, and he was told it was approved. The tragedy and the crime here, and I mean criminal act, is these banks that were requiring things that were not required. Okay? When we're talking criminal act, it's not an overstatement. In the law, it indicates, as well as the SBA's interpretation, that if these funds are misused in the 8 weeks, if they're used for purposes that are not intended, it is a criminal act. So it is not an overstatement to say that we're involved with a criminal act with a bank and those at the upper levels that decided that they were going to require things such as a bank account, such as a ranking system, such as looking at credit, such as looking at what is in the state records, such as looking if they had any other kind of record, asking for financial statements, indicating that they had to have a lending relationship with them as well. The biggest thing I heard over the comments over the last probably 10 days, if not a massive urgent plea, was small business owners and sole proprietors that were being told time and time again that they needed a business account. These are things that were not required, okay? So regardless as the upsetness that I have about how that happened, Jason's story, so to speak, really fired me up. I'm gonna be honest with you, I got up late. I've been doing a number of things. So I got up, I got immediately ready, and I put on a suit and tie. And while I was getting ready, I thought, I need to take this message. I didn't take the specific message of what happened with Jason. I needed to be brief and to the point. So it is bold. It may be seen by some as ridiculous, pompous, and to those individuals, I'll say, hell yeah, it is. Because somebody needs to be a voice for the small business owner. Someone needs to be a voice for the sole proprietor. And if no one else is going to do it, then it'll be me. Just a small CPA out of Oklahoma City that no one knew 20 days ago. I'm so pleased to tell you that while staying up last night and putting together videos related to the employee retention credit, talking about additional items, talking about forgiveness on the PPP, I'm so pleased, so thankful, so blessed, blown away that I exceeded 1 million views. And that is since March 17th. So thanks to all of you that have been tuning in, thumbs up, getting the word out about what I'm trying to get out there, which is just information. I've given out many calls of action, many calls of urgency to small business owners and to sole proprietors to fight for themselves, to be able to get into a bank and, in essence, nearly demand that they do what is called upon them, which is to literally hand these monies from the government to the small business owner and the sole proprietor. That was their job. It says in the law that it arrived already approved. The SBA came out on the 8th and the 6th and the 3rd and provided additional direction to the banks to say, just verify some basic information. You can go by whatever that customer of yours is representing to you as long as it seems reasonable. They didn't need to otherwise verify it. There were no provisions that indicated that the funds could only go into a business account. There were no provisions that required an LLC or certificate of good standing. There were no requirements that provided financial statements. There were no requirements that indicated that the person had to tell the bank how they were going to use the funds. There were none of those provisions. What they needed to provide was a Form 941, provide some information related to that, maybe some details on how they came up with it, some receipts to show the insurance they paid, the employer match that they made on the retirement, as well as the state unemployment tax. That's it. Here's your calculation. Boom, there you go. The bank thinks it's reasonable. Money's then approved and given to that person. The local banks that I've been working with here have been amazing. They've been a beacon of hope for the small businesses that they're working with, as well as the large businesses. And I understand that, it's 500 or less that qualify. 500 is a big employer, no offense. Okay, I don't have any employees. I don't have any clients that are 500 employees. Most of my clients have 10 or less. What I'm looking at right here, and the help that I need, is to either share one of my videos that I put together today with your congressman, with your senator, to share it with your friends, ask them to view it. I am not monetized on YouTube. This is not a stunt. I am not looking for new clients. I'm not taking on new clients. I don't have a video to sell since I started doing this, other than the book that I've had on Amazon since last fall that I lowered the price to $12.33 before I even did probably a first few of these videos that started to take notice. I'm a CPA that put together videos to help my clients and ended up helping small businesses across America. And I don't say that with any kind of sense of arrogance. I say it with a sense of thankfulness. And for those that reached out, we have somebody that is invited Amanda and I to go sit with them and enjoy a football game up in Iowa State. We've been offered free haircuts and to go surfing. We've been provided with groceries at the front door, almost near anonymously. We've been given prehistoric items. We've received wonderful letters and emails and comments. I've received phone calls at the office just saying thanks. It's been a huge compliment for those that have asked, am I working with new clients? That's what's made it worth it. And then just being a numbers guy, it's been fun to see the views, and it's been fun to see the numbers go up. More I gauge the views on a particular video.
God's dozer said you can come drive one of his dozers.
I'm done. I love it. I love it. I was using gauging the views and gauging the tag, so to speak, to know what was then needed, and it's been the self-employed. If you look at the videos that have the most views, it's the self-employed sole proprietor. And what I'm hearing over and over and over again and in emails is a plea. What can I do? Where can I go? They have no voice. Okay? The Uber driver, the one working out of their home, the one that's selling maybe some birdhouses, the one that's, they're diving and doing the most unusual, spectacular thing for people. People that didn't ask to be in this position, okay? No one did. It's not anybody's fault. And at this point, it doesn't even matter about the $349 billion that's already gone. Great, it's helping businesses, okay? We could critique it all we want. Shouldn't have been 10 million gross, okay? Ridiculous, okay? Long story short, it is what it is. The money is gone. Here is the urgent plea to those that are listening. Here is the urgent plea to all my great friends that are here every day, new You've been with me from the beginning, which at this point has been, 20 days since last Monday, which has been phenomenal. Thank you so much for the support, the love. It drives me to stay up. I was thinking of Nancy last night when I was putting together a video, and I kept talking. And I was thinking of someone that sent me a picture, and it was their kids in front of the TV watching JJ the CPA on the big screen. And I was driven to record a couple of videos that probably don't have any true expertise in, but trying to be maybe a positive voice for the small businesses and the sole proprietors. It is an absolute tragedy, and it sounds like I'm overstated, but I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to bring on clients. I'm not trying to do anything for myself. All right? To be honest with you, I don't need to. Let me just be honest with you. I don't need new business. I don't need the notoriety. I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm a CPA that has a full practice. Okay? I have a wonderful life. I have a wonderful soulmate, wonderful kids. Okay? I have everything I want in life. What am I trying to do right now? I'm trying to help the small business and the sole proprietor. And what am I talking about, the small business sole proprietor? You know, if you look at the employee retention credit, the wonderful IRS had said, 100 or fewer gets this employee retention credit, and they get the credit whether those employees worked or not. So let's go with that definition of a small employer, 100 or fewer. I'd love to see it as the sole proprietor and maybe the 10 or fewer, the 20 or fewer employers that have 20 or less, maybe 50 or less. Okay, 500 or less, you had your chance, you had your shot. Okay, the businesses that have 500 or less employees, you had your chance and you had your shot. Okay, and I love those kind of businesses. Okay, they're great people that own them. They're wonderful Americans and they're providing wonderful jobs. They have resources that owner who has 3 employees does not. They have a credit line that does not match the employer with 10 employees. They have the ability to go to a lender that can look at their sales and the rebound that they'll have and get a line of credit for those that have 100 or more employees. So I can pick my battles, and the battle I'm picking is for those that have 100 or less, or 50 or less employees, 20 or less employees, and that sole proprietor. They talk about that federal unemployment is filling the gap. Okay? It's still just now rolling out. There's a number of states that are just rolling it out. That's great. It's $600 a week. Okay? The PPP money, let's be straight and honest about it, it doesn't really actually go towards the business owner. Not that we need to line the business owner's pocket, but it goes to provide relief to the business owner for their employees, for the rent, for the utilities, which are the biggest expenses, as I've said for years, on most people's P&Ls. Okay? But this has extended longer than we all anticipated. And I have no critique at all of the government. I have no critique of our hardworking congressmen and women, the senators. I don't care about politics. I don't care that they're still arguing about a few things. In some ways, maybe it's good that they've argued about it, because now we as small business owners need to have a voice. I'm going to elect myself to be that voice because I see no one else doing it. Okay? I can't get any attention on the news. I can't get any attention for those that it matter to, in the sense of the ones that are controlling what's getting ready to come out next. So I'm relying on all of you, my wonderful friends, to spread the word. It doesn't even have to be sharing my video. Okay? So what works? Whatever you think it works, whether it's just talking about it on Facebook, whether it's contacting the news, whether you have a neighbor and they're a news anchor, or you know someone that knows someone that knows somebody that works at the congressional office or at the mayor's office. What we should spend today and tomorrow doing is reaching out. We don't have to be angry about it, right? We don't have to be hateful about it. What we need to be is truthful and pleading that the next round of funding needs to be for the small business owner and the sole proprietor, period, the end, period, the end. The larger businesses, you had your chance. Okay, when I see these large businesses on the news that got $10 million, okay, you can get it, you got it, whatever. They had their chance, okay? The banks, especially the larger ones, okay? I'm gonna say this though, I've heard great things about Citibank, so I don't want them included in it. There's a couple of banks I can think of, but guess what? I'm not interested in getting sued. So all I'm gonna say is there are banks out there, okay? Not all local banks have been wonderful, but there are a ton of them. And I'll tell you, every bank in Oklahoma must be the only banks in the United States of America that just simply followed what the SBA guidelines were and the law guidelines were, because I don't know any clients that didn't get their money other than one, and it was just didn't get it under the wire, that's all. Okay? I'm working with banks that were putting it in and getting what they needed and getting it approved and getting the funding right here in Oklahoma. And we're Oklahoma. We're like, what are we, 49th on the least educated in the United States of America or something like that? I mean, it's just a statistic, right? So here's the deal. It's not the government's fault, okay? It's not Speaker Pelosi. It's not Senator McConnell. Doesn't matter which aisle. It's not President Trump's fault that the money's already gone, okay? It's not the SBA's fault. The SBA's been freaking amazing. I mean, are you kidding me? They got out $349 billion before the IRS was able to get out the $1,200 and the $2,400 checks. No offense to the IRS, they're completely different systems. The IRS had to take their time to make sure there wasn't fraud. There's no criticism here. We're not going to get anywhere by being negative. We're not going to get anywhere by yelling and screaming and complaining and whining. Okay? That part's over. Where we're going to get somewhere is demanding. Okay? We can demand and be polite. We can demand by just being a voice. We can demand by just Facebook, talk about it. Right? Talk about Jason's story if he doesn't mind. Jason may do a post, share Jason's post everywhere. Doesn't have to be sharing my videos. I could care less about that. What we need to spread the word on here is that the next round of funding needs to be for the sole proprietor and the smallest of employers, and it only needs to be allocated through the local, state, regional credit unions, period, okay? Because those banks, I can pick up the phone and talk to their reps, maybe not their underwriters, but I can talk to those people that are helping their clients. I can talk to the president of the bank, the vice president of the bank, okay? Those banks know who those kids are of the business owners, okay? These banks are working harder, okay? And I will tell you this right now, I hope that somehow we can find out which banks required a business account and they are left out in the cold on the next round of funding. Too bad you had your chance. You required things that were not required. You don't get any more of the funding, okay? The big banks that required you to have a lending relationship and a business account don't get the next round of funding. They had their chance, okay? The banks, do they deserve it? I could care less. They got 5%. For doing what? They even did more work than they needed to for the 5%, which, no offense to my wonderful banking friends, why are you creating more work for yourself? Because most people talk about bankers' hours, right? Okay, some of my best friends are bankers and they got every one of their clients taken care of, every single one. And we're in Oklahoma. We're still ride horses to work and we got it done. So it makes no sense to me that banks across everywhere else, the funding wasn't done for the small business. Here's the other part. You ready for this? Here's the other part, the reason, the validity that we have and demanding, very respectfully demanding that the next round of funding go to the smallest of employers and the sole proprietors is this. We couldn't even start to apply until Friday, April 10th. Okay, the big businesses got to get in there, okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, the big businesses, I'm not even looking down on them. I mean, if you're able to apply, you go apply, you get your funding. I mean, that's just how it works, right? It's not their fault, okay? It's not even that, there wasn't enough money, okay? But the funding process, even if now I'm going to defend the banks for a moment, okay? I'll defend the banks for a moment that were doing the requirements but had so many applications that they couldn't get through them. So the first people to come in were the ones that had the biggest requests. And the ones that come in through and they have the smallest requests, okay, of $3,000, $4,000, $8,000, $12,000. They're not even getting that. It doesn't matter that this is an injustice. It doesn't matter that I believe that there's a near criminal act for some of the banks that required additional requirements on this when it was not required. Okay? What I'm saying is the next round of funding. That's what I want to focus in on. We're moving forward, next round of funding. All right, 349 billion is gone. Whose fault is it? Who cares? That's not our commentary. The commentary is this: the next round of funding has to go to the small business and the sole proprietor, period. If there's some big business that needs bailing out, let the banks that they're working with bail them out, not the government. Okay? These big banks that just collected 5% on $30 billion, okay? You got your shot. And so the businesses you're working with that are bigger, why don't you use some of that to lend out to them? The small business owner, okay? Now I may be a little bit biased, because a small business owner to me is 20 or less employees. But I don't want to leave the small business owner that maybe they have multiple locations, maybe they have 50. So what do we go with the ERC amount? 100 or less. 100 or less, that's what you qualify for, period, the end. And then the SBA, they have been wonderful. They came out with some guidelines on Tuesday. And I loved it. The SBA said, we are the SBA, we have the authority, we don't need to give notice, we don't require public comment, this is effective immediately, period, the end, here's how it works. So the SBA can do that exact same thing with the next round of funding. So if for whatever reason, maybe it's too late, and that was my plea, okay? That was my urgent message to Senator Langford from Oklahoma, Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma. Wonderful senators, okay? I first told them I wanted to make sure they knew to bring back to Washington that the banks in Oklahoma are the example, okay? The second that I wanted them to bring back to the Senate floor is a sense of urgency, okay? So, you know, it's not a big deal. It's Oklahoma, right? We probably have, 500 people that live here, and we all ride horses and drive, go up to the saloon, and right? But I know Senator Inhofe in the sense that I've prayed with him. I've been to prayer breakfasts going back 20 years, okay? Good God-fearing American. So the reason I sent a message to him is I feel like he would probably hear it. I sent a message to Senator Langford. I met him once, he was buying some barbecue, okay? In the sense of, we have a great community here, and if only they hear what I had to say, it's enough. The only reason is I wanted to send a message to Pelosi, and I wanted to send a message to McConnell and to the president, is I didn't want them to feel left out. Everybody would. That's the break in the seriousness here. All right, so at the end of the day, this is where I need the help. I've already said it, but in case you just got on, here's where I need the help. Is just somehow share, even if it's just one time, just mention somewhere, but let it build, okay? Let it build, okay? Here's what I'm being told by those that I know in the media. No one's talking about it. No one's really talking about it, okay? I get we're focused in on the medical part, okay? The tragedy aspects that take precedent over dollars and any of the things that I'm talking about, okay? Our doctors and masks and the safety and the well-being, all of those things, okay? That obviously comes first, okay? But what comes next, almost right there, as urgent, okay? I don't know if Seth Denson's on, but he was on the news the other day. I forget what it was, probably Fox News, or it was on Graham Ledger's show, The Daily Ledger, and he indicated that on restaurants, already 3%, it's estimated, will be permanently closed. I've got one of them. Okay, I got a client that has a small restaurant in a rural city here in Oklahoma, and it's been there forever. It's a pillar, lunchbox, breakfast, and they're permanently closed. We looked at the PPP, we looked at everything. They're permanently closed. I've got another business permanently closed. Okay, so that's a true statistic when you take a small-time CPA like me in a small, not as populated state, okay? And I already know 2 businesses and ready to be a third that are not going to be able to continue. Even with the funding potentials. They actually turned away the funding because they didn't see that it would actually help. So Seth is indicating that in the next 3 weeks, and Seth Denson is an expert in these things and in the health industry. He's on the news all the time. He has a YouTube channel that you need to check out. And the reason I say that is he has a doctor on, and they're asking and answering the questions that nobody else really has time to answer, such as, am I going to get the coronavirus if I go through the drive-through? You know, those kind of questions. Point is, Amanda, what did Seth say? It was, in 3 weeks, maybe it would be 10% of restaurants?
10 to 11%.
10 to 11 of restaurants permanently closed?
Yeah, and
Those are the ones that didn't get the funding. I mean, that's the sense of urgency here. It's Jason right here. It's Jason right here that had his money, in essence, taken away from him. He did everything perfect. Okay? And I don't need to beat up on that bank other than to say, what a shame, what a crime. What a crime. You have somebody that's waiting first thing on the 3rd, the first time, saying, hey, I've got everything ready to go. And it had to be perfect, right? I'm going to wink at you right now. It was perfect because he had watched all of JJ the CPA's videos and went to his website.
we have 3 of them online. We have Jason and Michael and a man named Guy that did everything that Jason just did, and all told the same thing.
Yeah.
And now today,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. You know, it chokes me up. You know, I took down the video, but when I was talking with one of my clients, you know, at this point it might have been 3 weeks ago, and they're closing their business. And long story short, I mean, I was just shooting a video and I broke down in tears over it. Took it down. Long story short, you know, I don't know Jason personally. Now, I consider him a friend, in part because he's been on here every day, in part because he's provided a lot of encouragement to me. We're best friends now, right? Provided this wonderful token,
You get a
more
shark too.
more than
You're
a
best
token.
friends.
Well, it's not even. I mean, we got to call it what it is. It's a megalodon. Okay, I'm from Oklahoma. I have trouble speaking sometimes, but this right here, this gentleman right here, that has everything in there, like what happened with that bank? Okay, I don't know what bank he was at. It doesn't matter in the sense of his story represents across the nation, and that's why this is the sense of urgency. And we'll answer some questions. The sense of urgency is the next round of funding has to be for the sole proprietor and the smallest of employers. Define that smallest of employers yourself. You know, for me, it's 20 or less that is really left out in the cold here. It's the sole proprietor left out of the cold. Okay? Can the Uber driver go get federal unemployment? Yes. Right? Can the sole proprietor go get unemployment? Yes. Now that's their only option. It's the only option. Okay? And it's not really fair to tell a sole proprietor in a small business, like, hey, quit your whining and sniveling because you can go collect $600 a week. Hey, listen, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. $600 a week is great. I don't know anyone that's getting it other than like 3 people that have commented, first of all. And part of it is the federal government all of a sudden said overnight, hey, states, we need you to help get this money out. So the states have been scrambling, doing the best they can, especially here in Oklahoma, right? But when you're talking to an Uber driver now that hadn't been doing anything for 3 weeks, and they're gonna get $600 starting in 2 weeks, that PPP money would have helped make up. The EIDL money would have helped to make up. This isn't the SBA's fault. It's not anybody's fault in the government. It doesn't even matter at this point. What matters is the next round of funding has to be for the smallest employer and the sole proprietorship. That's the urgent message, okay? That's the urgent message. So I've got a playlist that says urgent message for the government. I've got these videos that I put together for Senator Langford and Inhofe. Shared a few more things, and they're my senators. And then with Pelosi and Mitch McConnell, Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, I was much more to the point. And with the president, I won't lie to you, I never have to do videos twice, right? I just record them. I probably did 45 takes, that's why I was running late. But I got that message to the president, and if anything, I can be a voice, okay? You can be a voice. How are we a voice? Figure it out. Okay, and when that next round of funding comes, then if it's not reserved for the sole proprietor and the self-employed and the smallest of employers and the smaller banks, then our next plea is to the SBA. Our next plea will be to the SBA. Please put limitations on it, because the SBA has power. The SBA, I think, actually in retrospect, did a good thing by, instead of all businesses getting 10,000, they started basing it on employees so that more businesses could get it. Okay? They got criticized for it. Okay? The SBA came out and tried to do what they could to make sure banks understood you don't need all these extra requirements. So I hope that the SBA, if it's too late for the law to be limited to the small business and the sole proprietor, if it's too late for that, right? With the negotiations and trying to get it done and get more money going out to the business owner, if it's too late for that, then our plea is to the Small Business Administration to narrow the scope and narrow those that are handing out these dollars. And by the way, don't our local, our state, our regional, our credit unions, don't they deserve to get those 5% fees more than banks that had bailouts 10 years ago? Shame on the banks that had bailouts and then found a way to not fund small business owners and sole proprietors that have been customers of theirs, some for decades. That's the criminal act. You got bailed out, and then you find ways that money's been handed to you to simply hand back out. And for the effort of being handed money and handing it back out, you collected 5%. And then you find ways to not give it out to the smaller ones. You still got your same 5%. It's not like the small loans yielded a smaller percentage. So it needs to go to the hardworking, well-deserving local, state, regional credit unions only that go to soccer practice and baseball games and dance recitals and at breakfast and at lunch and church and their synagogues together, and they see those people and they're going to make sure that those things happen. All right. We going to answer some questions?
Some, I do have to leave a little before 5:30.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for listening. It's all for you guys, in the sense of, it sounds terrible, but all my clients were able to be funded. I'm not angry about it for any of my clients. What I'm angry about is that I've been hearing this and now to see it, so disappointing. And Jason, I'm sorry. And hopefully with the next round of funding, you're first in line, and hopefully your bank will make that right. I do know that some of the institutions out there got into the game for whatever reason. They were approved late, but some of these groups that know how to do the funding, all automated and online for mortgages, in some ways they've probably been a hero to the small businesses. So hopefully maybe they'll be able to be a part of the next round.
And just an FYI, I'm not going to ask questions that's asking how to apply for PPP and EIDL. We're going to have to just skip those that don't apply. So, you guys understand that.
Yeah, so we're not going to speculate that the PPP will be the same. It may be, but I've also have a hunch that the next round of funding will just be loans, not forgivable loans. So I think it could be that it's different. So in terms of, should I do a PPP, should I do an EIDL? Unfortunately, neither are available. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and I put a video up there. You need to do the Form 7200 if you didn't get PPP funds or EIDL funds. You need to do the employee retention credits, a Form 7200. I just posted a video on it. I did a couple of videos last night in anticipation of this. I did a video on how do you prepare it, how do you calculate it, what form do you go to, where are the instructions, all of those things. So that's what you want to do next. Because if you didn't get PPP funding, here's the deal. That is for 100 or fewer employees in a business, whatever you paid your whatever you paid your employees from March 13th, on March 13th through March 31st, whatever you paid them, whether they worked or not, right? They showed up at work every day, they were home every day, doesn't matter, 100 or less, what you paid them, you get a 50% tax credit. It's probably rare that in those circumstances with employers that have 100 or less that anybody made $10,000, okay? But technically it's on the first $10,000 of compensation to each employee qualifies for this credit. So there's no reason to even try and understand that one. No reason to understand it. Here's what you need to understand. You didn't get PPP, you didn't get EIDL. Here's what you're doing. Form 7200 as in a panic. Like tonight, you're canceling whatever the heck it is that you're doing. You don't need to eat dinner, okay? What you need to do is file 7200. What do you need? What did you pay everybody? What was the amount that you paid your employees from the 13th through the 31st? There's no reason to get confused by it. It's really simple. What do you pay per day, whether they are working or not? You don't have to figure anything else out other than what did you pay those employees? Okay, you're gonna take that amount times 50%. You don't even have to provide to the IRS a breakdown of employee by employee. What you're gonna do is what did you pay times 50%? You're gonna put it on line 1 and you're gonna fax it to the IRS. You literally, if you had payroll records in front of you, you could do this in 5 minutes. So that's what you need to do tonight, because what I don't wanna have happen is that unfortunately the IRS says, hey, we ran out of that. Right? I don't know that I'm sure there's a funding amount related to that, but get it in today, tonight, right now, get it to the fax. Okay, it's just one sheet, you fax it, and then the IRS sends you a check. It's an advance credit. You don't get to do the sick leave, you don't get to do the Family Medical Leave Act, you don't get to do those. They're not till April 1st. This is just on the employee retention credit. That's what you're doing, okay? PPP, EIDL, irrelevant until they indicate different. It's the ERC and getting unemployment. Can you get unemployment and do the ERC? Yes. Okay. If you have employees right now and you didn't get PPP money, you need to consider right now how to get them on unemployment. That's not been my message, but where else are you going to get the money to pay them? They have the unemployment, the federal should be out. That's what you want to go after. You can get the ERC, okay, because it's the past. Okay, it's 13th through the 31st of March. It's what you already did, get some money back on that, but then it may be time for employees to go on unemployment. I hate to say it, it's terrible, it's a tragedy, okay? But you didn't get the funding as an employer, so where else are you going to quote unquote take care of your employees? It would be unemployment. And they can do a furlough, they can indicate in most states, hey, it's temporary, it's COVID-19, they qualify for the $600. Whether they qualify for $1 or $300, doesn't matter, they're gonna get the full $600 per week. And then if you have questions about PPP and forgiveness, what I'm gonna refer you to is what I stayed up late. I did 2 videos on it where I walked through the law and put together a list of what it is that you need, and it's very short, okay? So what is it that counts for loan forgiveness? What you paid your employee gross, the employer match that was paid by the employer, the health insurance paid by the employer, as well as the SUTA tax, right? That's your payroll tax. 75% of your PPP needs to be spent on that. And then up to 25% can be spent on rent, utilities, and interest on mortgages. That's it. It's simple. There's no inventing what a utility is now. Think of your basic utilities, that's what counts. Think of your basic rent, that's what counts. 8 weeks worth on all of it. 8 weeks worth, okay? Doesn't matter if you have 3 payroll periods, you wanna pay 6 months in advance for rent, doesn't matter. What's gonna count is 8 weeks worth of the rent that was paid, 8 weeks worth of the utilities. And then I go through the calculation and I actually take the law line by line, put it in an Excel spreadsheet and put numbers to it. I literally take the law line by line to walk you through it, okay? You can't strategize it because I need you to go watch that video because there's no way to strategize it. There are so many variables. You're comparing what hasn't even happened yet to then what happened in 2 different occasions in the prior year. There's no strategy. The strategy is this: who are you paying? Keep paying them. Okay? If your employees go on unemployment and you don't pay them, then you just have money to pay back at the end. They don't get to collect unemployment and get money from you. Okay? So at the end of the day, if they can get unemployment, then you can have them go get the unemployment, or if you can pay them and it's more and you have PPP money, then pay them. But in terms of the strategy of, well, how do I make sure it's all forgiven? How do I make sure that, should I give everybody a raise? And the answer is no on that, okay? It's just, they're gonna catch you one way or come in another. It's impossible. It's literally impossible to strategize on this because it's based on head count as well as dollars. It's based on your average head count between February 15th and June 30th of 2020 compared to head count from January 1st to February 29th of 2020 compared to head count of February 15th of 19 to June 30th of 19, okay? As well as then dollars that were spent. And then you do ratios to then look at how much can't be forgiven. You can't just rehire everybody and now it's forgiven. You have to spend the money. So there's no strategizing. And so the reason I go through that is you need to watch the 2 videos. And so any questions that we have on the forgiveness part, I just want you to watch those 2 videos because it's going to run down exactly what your questions are. So do we want to buzz through some questions that are related to other items?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to grab something to drink real quick. Take a deep breath.
I do want to give a shout out to RJ Grimshaw. Apparently he is a banker and his bank funded over 800 businesses PPP. And so big shout out to you. I know that you said that you just have, I think, 7 branches, but huge shout out to you for being one of the good guys. Oh, and make sure that you guys are subscribing. We have 265 people on. Make sure that you are giving us thumbs up as well. I know you do have to be logged in for that, but if you could do that, that would be greatly appreciated.
All right. Hey, welcome to the day after the non-deadline of April 16th. Thank you for joining us today. We had a message from the JJ, the CPA. Now sitting before you is JJ. Hey, listen, so thanks for all the emails. Thanks again to Jason for the wonderful gift and token and putting a fire underneath me to maybe make some bold videos that were very respectful. What we want to cover now is some of the questions. And again, if you got questions on the forgiveness, I'll just refer you to the 2 videos. If you have questions on the employee retained credit, we'll probably take a few, but I did some really detailed messages on that. So thanks for everybody that's here. And yes, to the banker, I mean, that's a great example did you say he did 800?
Yeah, 800.
I mean, that's 100 a day.
And they were all funded, so.
That's 100 applications a day. That's working evenings and Saturday and Sunday and probably even a little bit on Easter Sunday.
There's 7 branches.
7 branches. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of activity that's going on. I had other banks that had 375, some that had a few hundred, but from the perspective of 800. So that's the kind of bank that I think would be a great qualifier for the next round of funding. So regardless of my disdain for the larger banks, that's why. And some of the banks that were requiring some of the information I mentioned, if they still got the funding done and they just wanted it for the file, okay. But for the banks that used it as a stall tactic, that's where I had the issue. All right, what are we going into next here? We got, is it Stephanie?
My question is, as we work through our backlog, we may have some weeks that earn more than their average weekly. We may have some workers that earn more than their average weekly pay. I have the PPP money in a separate account and plan to transfer funds into a payroll account each week. Do I transfer only the average weekly payroll from the PPP calculations, or do I transfer the whole amount of payroll for the week, knowing that I may go over the 75% mark in the end? Our allowable expenses probably won't reach the 25% mark, but I want to keep this as clean and above the board.
Yeah, great question, Stephanie, and thank you for laying that all out. You definitely have a grasp of kind of the complexities of what we're dealing with on the PPP money. And yes, you can spend more. This is kind of the interesting thing about the PPP calculation is just what you were saying, right? It's it's an average based on the past, right? And for a number of banks, they took the average, of 2019. Well, heck, we're in, April. So how do we know what that average is and how it's going to apply to now, other than, we hope it's basically the same. And that's why they've got some of the, provisions in there where you're comparing what happened at the beginning of 20 to the covered period of February 15th to June 30th of this year compared to those time periods in 2019. So that's where it'll kind of come out in the end. Definitely check out my video, the one where I do the calculation. I think you would enjoy on my, and when you look at my website, jjthecpahelp.com, I've got a page now that just says forgiveness on it, and I actually have a worksheet. You may have come up with your own already, but I put the law in there and then I work the numbers down. So here's what I would say to you is this. I think the way it's really going to work out A-OK is, whatever employees you have, around February 15th, right? Because that's kind of the head count that you needed to provide. If you're within a reasonable amount of what you just have had in the last, 60 days, 30 days, if you're paying at least that, you should end up A-OK. Now, it may be higher than the average, but then see, that's where you'll actually work out okay, because it'll see that your head count is different for that period of time than what it was in the prior year, okay? And you'll actually get minorly rewarded for that, and you'll be, you'll get some ollie oxen free out of that. So when you go through that calculation, you'll see that there's two calculations, right? Just go, what if there was a difference of just one employee in my example there, and it makes all the difference. So if you do have more employees than you did last year, okay, and you're just then maintaining that level of compensation, then you should be okay. So to really answer your question, you does it have a separate bank account? Is that what you were saying? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in the separate bank account, technically just pull out whatever it is that you're paying gross, okay? Technically the employer taxes, don't count. And so if you really are, wanting to really go, boom, I'm only pulling out what's going to be included, then, the employer match, okay, is not included in the forgiveness. But then remember, part of that payroll cost arriving at your 75% is including the employer match, the SUTA, as well as the employer portion of the health insurance. And you absolutely can go over the 75%. It's okay that you may not have the full 25%, but here's the overall theme. If you're giving somebody a raise, if you're trying to hire somebody to make up the difference because somebody left, okay, that's okay. Giving people raises isn't going to help you, okay, because they're going to see that the payroll went up, but the number of people went down, and it'll come out like in the wash, as in you're not going to be able to get away with it. And I'm not saying that you are, because you're trying to do it right. All I'm saying is this, and this has been my theme, just pay whatever it is that your payroll is. What's entering in, not for you, Stephanie, but for those that's entering in their mind or their thought process of, well, how do I make sure it gets all forgiven, or how do I make sure, or can I, that stuff's just not going to work itself out. The only thing I'll say is if you're replacing, you're rehiring, that'll work itself out. And this whole factor of you hire people by June 30, it never helps you. It just saves what your forgiveness is. So did we let Stephanie know when we replied?
Yeah, and everyone wanted me to tell you that the COVID task force has started because you're live. So
The COVID task force?
the Trump.
Oh, Trump on the coronavirus response. I love it. Okay, so
This one's from Delina.
we're going backwards.
Yeah. Delina. It's probably, it's from Doolin FN.
Okay. Yeah, I think we've had a question from Doolin before.
We have. Okay, I have just received my EIDL email first time this morning as it regards to the determination of how much advance amount will be distributed according to number of employees. I thought they lost my application. I think I'm going to receive this EIDL loan before PPP. Can I just hold on that EIDL loan and we'll pay them back later? The quandary is that if both loans will be transferred into the same account, and then the forgivable expenses also will be paid withdrawn from this account. How do they know which loan I spent on?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And, we are trying to play catch up. Technically, that question was about 36 hours ago, maybe. So with the PPP money running out, I'm glad that you got the message about the EIDL. That should mean you're going to get those funds. It did indicate on the website, even though the funds have lapsed, so to speak, that those have applied. We'll get it first come, first serve. If you did get the PPP funds, then the way that you could, I think, take care of it is you would spend the PPP funds first and then the EIDL to then distinctly show. And I understand that you're kind of, taking 2 cups of water into a bowl of water. But if you're able to document that, and a great way to do that would be, through QuickBooks, that would be a good one. So thanks for the question on that. And hopefully you get both, but if not, on the EIDL probably solves it. And then probably the next step is doing unemployment. So thanks for the question.
This one's going to Connie. Our plan with the PPP funding was to, one, pay only those employees working, but giving an extra $2 an hour along with their wage based on the hours worked the first quarter. We have been deemed an essential business and have 30% staff working. 2, keep current employees receiving partial UI in California on UI, along with an extra $600 a week. All staff will be brought back to work. Can we do this?
Okay. So let's just assume that Connie got the PPP funding. I hope that she did. I hope their company did. So pay only the employees working, but give them an extra $2 an hour along with their wage. I mean, you can, but it might be minorly de minimis. But if you're giving them $2 an hour for no more than the reason of just using PPP funds, no reason to do that. If you're giving it to them, then quite like quote unquote as hazard pay, you might be minorly penalized for it. And all I mean by that is that when you go to do the final funding, that kind of works itself out, that they know it, right? Based on the calculations, meaning head count went down, but then the overall employment per employee, wages went up. So, on that, I would just say, do what makes best business sense. If you're doing the $2 an hour only because you have the PPP, I don't think that's enough of a reason. And then keep our current employees receiving partial UI along with the extra $600. You definitely can do that. Whatever you don't use on the PPP, you can just pay back at the end. And you're either going to pay it back immediately or over the 2 years. And then all staff will be brought back to work. Yeah, and then whenever you bring them back, then you're good to go. So the thing to know is on the PPP, it's kind of more just, I keep going back to the same analogy, but you've been given some money, and then whatever you do have on payroll and rent and utilities and insurance and the mortgage interest and the SUDA, hey, what does your business need in the environment that it's in? Here you go to make it all work. Their hope and preference is that you would use the PPP money to pay those employees, whether they're working or not, but certainly makes sense that if your employees are able to make more on unemployment, that they would do that if they're not working, right? And the reason that that's not a double dip and no one gets in trouble over that is that if your employees are on unemployment, then you didn't spend that, right? And so then you have it left over to give back, right? So it's kind of more, here's a reserve to help pay for the employees. On the $2 an hour, I don't know what your overall payroll is. It may be de minimis. So if it's the right thing to do, then just go ahead and do it. But if you're only doing it for the forgiveness, then you might pass on that. So hopefully you got the PPP, Connie. If not, then I think you're probably moving in a direction that for sure, obviously your employees are staying on unemployment. You might need to think through, if you're not getting dollars of relief, do you even keep the full 30%? And if those employees are going to be able to get taken care of on the unemployment, then that might feel okay. Because I know right now we're trying to look out for all of our employees. So thank you, Connie. I appreciate it.
Right now, because we have so many PPP questions, they're all asking the same thing. So I'm going through here and deleting things. And trying to find a non-PPP question.
Yeah, and so just interrupt me whenever you find it, Amanda, but, so the one thing I would say is that, if they bring the PPP back online, I don't know that we would have the EIDL. So the questions about should I do the EIDL or the PPP, obviously you're just gonna go for the PPP. I wouldn't count on the PPP. What I would do is get that 7,200 form sent in, get your credit paid for. Did you get one?
Yeah, this is from Tina Beard, CPA.
Oh, Tina.
Can they give raises to people who are continuing to work and not register for unemployment during the 8-week period as long as the head count is back to the beginning number as of June 30? These people are keeping the business open and going during time, and to me deserve the additional pay. The raises would bring the employees above what they are able to draw on unemployment. They would still cap annual salaries at $100,000. Did you find it?
I didn't. I heard everything you said. Since it had numbers. So, Tina, great question. And honestly, I'd love your input on the video that I did, because I couldn't even really figure out the end of the calculation in the law. I say it in the video. I get through the 75 and the 25 and what it applies to, and I run some numbers and examples, and then I do the head count, come up with kind of a head count example for the covered period, which is February 15th through June 30. Also a head count from the other periods that are indicated. Then you're supposed to do a quotient and multiply it by the payroll cost, and you come up with a dollar amount. But then when I got down to the salary part, which kind of leads into your question, I read it over and over and over and over. Now, it might have been because it was 4:30 a.m., but I just couldn't understand at all how the formula worked. And so even in the email, I was like, hey, or in the video, I said, hey, if anybody can help us with that. But I do know this, just based on the first part of the calculation, if you go to jjthecpahelp.com, I've got that Excel spreadsheet you can open. If you got any suggestions for it, love them back. But you can run the numbers. It's got the formulas in it. And then I literally put the law line by line in there so that I could run numbers on each line item. But what does seem clear is that even though the head count would be up, and you have those dollar amounts, the head count going down because you have the average that's coming into play. And I know that it indicates that if you have the head count back up at June 30, something will be ignored, but you do have to spend it. It does still have to be, in essence, the average amount for the average number of employees. So the problem is if they pay the raises, okay, I think to the quick of your question, I don't think they get forgiven. I don't think that portion of it gets forgiven. And so what would happen is the employer would have used these dollars from the PPP, paid out raises, and at the end, they're gonna owe, in essence, whatever those raises were. So I'd say ixnay on the raises. Just pay what those people are paid. People go on unemployment, no big deal. The head count comes back up, but then they'll have the money left over to be able to give back. So run the math and let me know. I'd love it if you'd let me know what you come up with.
All right, this one is from Raj. Thanks to your show, you're one of the first to get a PPP loan submitted and approved.
Nice, congrats.
We hope they got the money. Now that the docs have been signed, the money deposits on Thursday, so I think that should be today. 2 questions. Can I hire additional new employees to increase our payroll cost to maximize loan forgiveness in the addition to holding all existing employees through the payroll period? Our rent and utilities are insignificant. 2, a number of our employees have salaries above $100,000. Will the forgiveness loan calculation also assume that payroll costs per employees are capped at $100,000, prorated for the 60-day period? Rumor has it the cap won't be applied in the calculation.
Raj, thank you for the question. These are common questions that come into play. So what you would need to compare, go to my website and find the forgiveness page on jjthecpahelp.com, go to the Excel spreadsheet, and as it relates to that calculation, what you would want to do when you're trying to make that determination is, how's that head count going to compare to the first 2 months of 2020? And then how's that head count going to compare to February 15th, 19 through June 30, 19? And then when you're actually looking at the head count, it's the average head count. It's not just what was it at one time, one point in time. So from February 15th to June 30, right? It's not just what was it only on June 30, but you're doing the average in that time period. So if you have, it's kind of going to be a weird calc, right? It's like if you had somebody that they had 4 employees and then 2 of them went on unemployment, but then they ended up having 6 employees near the end. And so overall, they still had an average of 4 employees. They had the average overall of the salary. That might end up okay. But it's not going to just be that here were your employees, you've been kind of trucking along here, and then you're going to hire a few more, because with that head count going up, the rate going up, and them going into kind of taking then what's the average salary per, to then compare it to the past, which is just a long way of going, what, JJ? The what, JJ, is it won't work. It just won't. Go to the calculation, you can run the numbers, but it won't help. Now, I will say this, Remember all this, everybody. It is, you do have an average amount that's being given, and if you go and look, do you mind? They got that TV so high, maybe just shut the doors. But if you look, and you go to that calculation, the 75%, right? If you take your average payroll times 2.5, and you come up with, let's just say your average monthly is $50,000, right? So your PPP would be $150,000, right? So if you take $150,000, times the 75%, you're going to have a threshold less than what your actual monthly average is on the application. So I understand it's kind of hard to follow calculations when you're hearing them. So again, go to my website, go to that Excel spreadsheet, and you'll see, and here's your takeaway. What you borrowed times 75% is actually less than what you put on as your average monthly payroll. So you already have kind of a margin of error, so to speak. And then you can spend more than 75%, because really if you just even spent the average, you're going to be over the 75%. And then health insurance and the retirement benefits go into that as well. So, and then it is absolutely going to be capped. The SBA came out, which I also have on the PPP page on jjthecpahelp.com, is very clearly what they indicate is if you take 100,000 and you go into 8 weeks, it's like 15,583 or something like that, and that's the max per employee, period, the end. So it's absolutely going to be taken into consideration. And then remember that payroll taxes, the employer portion, is not taken into account.
I just want to give a quick shout out to everybody that's here. Make sure that you are hitting subscribe and you are giving thumbs up. Also, Carol, bless her heart, just announced that their governor just locked them down until May 26th in Wisconsin. And Coach's Pit Barbecue is on.
Boom. Did we figure out where Coach's is at?
He's in California.
Oh, that's right.
I sent him a koozie because he emailed to get one. So.
Oh man, I love it. Appreciate it. Well, that's crazy. So the other hope here is that even with the existing PPP, we had a couple of questions before where, what if we can't even open up within the 8 weeks, or we open up, but it's only in the latter 4 weeks. Now the employers have money and they were stuck. They couldn't pay anybody, right? Because they were all on unemployment. Now everybody comes back. They're going to have to give the money back after the 4 weeks. They don't have the money that could go another 8 weeks. Point is my hope is that they go in a direction where we've got 12 weeks that come into play there.
Well, Andre just trumped Carol because Virginia is on stay-at-home until June 10th.
Wow.
My gosh.
Man.
So
see, these are states that even if they could put a provision, and the SBA's done a good job, I think, of there always seemed to be a day after what I would want, but maybe I'm a little ahead of everybody else. I don't know, but they've done a good job of coming out with additional info. So maybe they and their authority would come out and say, hey, it's not going to be an 8-week period. It's going to be a 12-week period, or you can start your 8 weeks at a different point in time. Because here's the deal. Think of, with Wisconsin and was it you say Virginia?
Yeah.
So, there's businesses that aren't going to be able to open until a later date. So those that got PPP funds, right? I mean, they can use it to pay their employees. Don't get me wrong. They can use it. The employees are at home. They use it. Boom, they're going to get forgiven. But then the problem is the PPP money, in my opinion, was, okay, you're going to be out for a bit. Your gross is going to be down, your income, that is. And therefore, when you go back to work, you haven't lost too much ground, and it'll kind of give you a good push into being back into business. And that was when we thought maybe we would be you bet, Stephanie, maybe we would be in, back at it maybe by Easter, but, we're going on a week past that almost. So.
Our next question is from Tracy.
The Tracy?
No.
No, okay.
We had a driver call in to tell us his working hours were reduced. Includes overtime. Most of our drivers get OT from 5 to 30 hours a week. So he applied for unemployment to make up for those hours lost. So essentially, they are going to file unemployment on the lost overtime. With that said, should we pay hours out based on a certain amount of OT? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely not. You probably want to double check the rules in your state when it comes to unemployment. And if you were looking at those rules, I'm pretty confident that it's not going to be that you get unemployment for overtime and then you can get paid your regular time. Like, I'd be shocked if that's actually how it works. I think you would actually get into, I know in my state and the states that I'm aware of, that you actually would be in cahoots, and that's a double dip. And I understand that they live off of the overtime. I get that part. But I really, it's an either or. You either are going to get the unemployment or they're going to get paid by you. And if they're going to get paid by you, then you're going to have the dollars to do it for the loan forgiveness. If they go and do the unemployment, then you'll just have that money left over after the 8 weeks that you can give back to the bank. Have your employee do some investigative work with you in terms of actually finding it in black and white, these circumstances that you're in. And I wouldn't even focus in on the overtime part, because I think you probably wouldn't find anything related to overtime, but what you would want to find is this. If you have an employee and their wages have been reduced, okay, forget that it's overtime, their wages have been reduced, can they go and get unemployment for the amount that it's been reduced and the employer pay, in essence, the difference, right? So if someone normally makes, $200 a day, okay, and their compensation goes down by $100, do they go and get unemployment for the reduction in pay? And then what the employer can pay is the difference. And the short answer on that is I've never heard of such thing, but it doesn't mean in your state that it's not the case. And this federal unemployment has been quite generous. So anyways, at the end of the day, move cautiously, and your employees may be upset with that, but it wouldn't be your fault. Get it in black and white, period. Don't put yourself in a position that you have an employee that's upset because you won't do what they think can be done if you can't find it extremely clear on the website. And I think it would be clear. I think you would be able to find something somewhere in your state. And if you go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, which there's nothing in there that asks for your information, but if you go to the website and you go to the unemployment page, you can click on your state and then go to your state website and find hopefully that information. And so that's a website put together by the Department of Labor. Well,
I'm still trying to find questions.
okay, so we've got a ton related to that.
Chuck Swan, PPP funds dropped into my account today. That was yesterday. Thanks for all your help. and that was Modern Automotive.
Oh, okay, awesome,
He actually
love it.
got the funds in his
Thank
account.
goodness, yeah, thank goodness. I'm super glad about that.
Okay, here's one, and this is from Carol, who is actually on right now and in lockdown in Wisconsin.
Okay.
She says, do you have reference or insight into the rumor that these stimulus checks will have to be given back on our 2020 taxes? Rumor is that your refund will be reduced, or if you owe for 2020, it will be tacked on the balance due. Thanks again, Carol.
Yeah, I haven't read anything about that. And, from my perspective, IRS doesn't work on rumors. It does seem logical because I do know that there were rebate checks given once upon a time in the Obama administration. And it did seem as though we had to account for those and then had the difference. But mostly, what I've come across is just simply they're basing it on 18 or 19. Here you go. Usually the IRS would be really good at saying, and hey, FYI, if it turns out you got too much or you got too little or whatever the case is, we're going to make up that to you later. I think that it might just be running kind of the law of averages, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that, it would be both sides of the coin there, meaning if somebody didn't get enough, okay, because their 18 show that they made more than what their 19 did, and so when they file 19, it would be like, oh, well, shoot, you should have qualified for more. Well, by the time that's filed, that client files 2019 or 2020, the crisis would have been over, and we're talking now, we're into 2021, and so that'd be my thought, is that there's not going to be a catch up or a give back from the standpoint of it's meant for the crisis era. I know that seems pretty unfair, but then I wouldn't be surprised if the IRS came out and said, hey, we do need to do an accounting of this, and we did base it on this, but if you did have a different set of circumstances, then we are going to have to recapture and or we will give you more. But I think it's more about getting you the money right now, which I wish would have come a lot sooner. But know this, once I come across something related to that, I'll definitely be getting word out myself.
And this one's from Steven. Okay, I think I have my ducks in a row. I don't know what we were doing, but we were told to do an LLP, which we are switching after watching you guys. If you have advice in Washington, would love to know. But LLP 1065, we both run it and are running it by ourselves. But if we could talk to someone so we could describe the situation better, I've only cooked barbecue, not books.
All right.
And I know that I emailed you back, but I do have your koozies over there to send them out to you. Michael Abrams, greetings to you. So
hey, what's up, Michael? How are you, sir? Let's see.
Maybe that's not a question.
Now, I understand your situation, and I think regardless of what state you're in, typically, the 1065 is going to lead to, your net income without a doubt, given that you're actively involved in the business, being subject to self-employment tax. So you'd want to be taxed as an S corporation. I don't know that an LLP would be able to do that because it's a limited liability partnership. You'd want to be a limited liability company. Typically at the Secretary of State, you can shift this stuff around. You don't have to shut your business down and get a new tax ID number and start from scratch. It would just be at the Secretary of State that you would change to an LLC. I know in Oklahoma, we just don't have LLPs, but in Oklahoma, if you're an Inc., if you're a PC, you can convert to, it's a conversion at the Secretary of State level, to that different entity, usually $100 or something. But then once you're an LLC, this is the big thing. This is the big ticket item. This is the huge thing. This is definitely the thing you can't forget, and you can't really have any reasons later to say, oh shoot, well I didn't know how to do it. But you need to file a Form 2553. Form 2553, it's the S election. It's actually fairly simple. You know, name, address, what's the effective date of your S Corp, boom, put the date that you're transferring. I'd probably at this point recommend you do it 1/1/2021 just to not have it be mid-year. And you basically say effective date, I want to be an S Corp, everybody signs off on it that's owners, and you mail it into the IRS or you can fax it in. It's very easy. Now, you don't want to do it yourself per se, but it's not a complicated form to fill out. It's just that if you just cook barbecue, it might be a simple process for you, but if I got in there and tried to do whatever it is that you do, even the simplest task, it would seem impossible to me. But at the end of the day, you want to be an S Corp. Why? So that you save the self-employment tax. And in fact, I did a video on it. I forget what it was called. It was like secrets, something like that. So what are we doing? Because you got to go.
Oh, it's fine. I've already taken care of it. Backyard barbecue.
Okay, hang on. Just so the I'm sorry, I forgot to finish telling him. So the video to look for is, I think it's called "No One Should Be a Sole Proprietor." It's called "Tax Strategies for Millionaires Start With," and then on the tag it says "Lazy people do not watch. No one should be a sole proprietor." And I just walked through why you'd want to be an S Corp if you're actively involved.
Steven's on. Steven Hostiga.
Oh, okay, yeah, awesome.
Anyways, we got this awesome picture from him, or from Steven, and he's actually on, but he put this on his Facebook.
I love it.
Happy hour yesterday.
Perfect, backyard barbecue. I love it.
He says that on the video you're directing him to, he's watched it 5 times.
Oh, okay. I love it. Yeah. So convert at the Secretary of State and then file the 2553. I'll tell you a little secret. You could actually do all that, and it's legal that to make it effective in your current year, you could make it effective 1/1/2020 and your S election effective 1/1/2020. Your attorney would need to know just how to make sure that effective date was registered with the Secretary of State and that effective date is on your 2553. But if you're going to do this for long term, be the 2553. Yes, ma'am.
Brad Fitzpatrick, love the work you do. With your assistance, I was able to get $1,004,000 in PPP
Oh, wow.
money.
Wow. Well, that is
So awesome, Brad.
Yeah, awesome. Congratulations in the sense of, you're working with a bank that got that info. So great job to your team, to you, to that bank. You've heard me, probably all of you, get upset with banks, but it's been the banks that have just provided these extra hurdles for people. So anyways, congratulations on that, because I know that's got to be a big relief. And with those amount of dollars, you have a lot of responsibilities as an employer, and hopefully everybody's going to breathe a sigh of relief that you're going to be able to take care of them, because I bet what you're compensating is more than what they could get on unemployment.
How long do you want to go for? Your call.
Yeah, just so you're not doing your plans? Okay. Why don't we go till 6:30 our time?
6:30?
Yeah, unless we get through them all.
Okay. This is from...
So, hey, thanks for that, and thank you for the post as well. Really appreciate it.
This is from Anthony. Can we qualify for partial unemployment while on PPP? Can we qualify for partial unemployment while on PPP? Until states allow 1099s to receive PUA. Shouldn't it reduce just the state original unemployment benefits, but will we still qualify for the federal $600?
Yeah, the SBA gave us some guidance on that, and you really aren't supposed to do both, okay? Now, let me just say it this way. If you are an S Corp, right, and you pay yourself wages, then when you get the PPP money, that's covering your wages as the owner for 8 weeks, okay? If you're a partnership, right, and based on what the SBA came out with, hours before the money ran out. But nonetheless, whatever the self-employment income is, it's applied for up at the partnership level. So whatever that is divided by 8 is what the partner would in essence benefit from. Then we're talking about on a sole proprietor, it's a little trickier on this one. The intent really may be, and I didn't feel like it was totally clear when you got down to the sole proprietor level. So not knowing if you're doing the sole proprietor, which is Schedule C, it's much easier to do the loan forgiveness on the sole proprietor or on the Schedule C, if that was the basis. Because what you do, and I've got a worksheet on my website that walks this through and a video that walks you through this, but you take whatever your net income is on that Schedule C, divide it by 52, okay, so 52 weeks, times 8, and that's the dollar amount that it's forgiven, right? Because how else would a self-employed actually be able to substantiate what it is that they're paying to themselves? So if you are self-employed and you do the divided by 52 times 8 and it's automatically forgiven, I don't know if you can then get the PUI then anyway. So here's what I've been telling people is go ahead and apply for it, because the questionings that you go through should take that into account. Meaning, it's kind of like when we did the PPP applications, right? It asked about the EIDL, and I know it was weird because it added to, but that had to do with the refinance. And then, it does talk about in the employee retention credits, if you're taking the PPP, you cannot take the employee retention credit. My big thing on that is I just want the IRS to confirm the date that that's effective. So I would just say this, you need the money, I'm sure. I know that a number of sole proprietors have said, really, it's going to be based on my net on Schedule C. I mean, I got depreciation, I've got mileage. It's not enough. So maybe from trying to do it the right way, because that's obviously what you're trying to do by even asking the question, is maybe think through, what is it that you live on? And is the amount that you're getting enough for you to live on for 8 weeks? And if not, how much is it going to cover, right? So if your living expenses is $2,000 a month, and so that would be, your living expenses are $4,000, but the amount that you got on the PPP is $2,000, where you're short. But if you're following me, you're short a month, meaning your money lasts you a month then. So I would say when you're now going like, I'm out of money, okay, not by going to spend extra, and I know you're not going to do that, then I would look at that as the time to do that. So I think that's how you rectify it. I do feel like, though, if you're getting wages from your S Corp, you're not going to qualify unless you don't pay yourself from your S Corp. But then you'd have that money to pay back. So I think what it comes down to is that if you're still getting paid, I don't see how you qualify as long as it's going to be the amount that you're normally living on. But again, go through the state questionnaire, and that'll, I think, really solve it for you. So don't be afraid to do it. Just go through it. All right. Hey, thanks for the question. I really appreciate it.
This question is from Vernita, who is Steven's fiance that we just answered.
Oh, hey.
We just got the application from our bank for the PPP that we've been waiting for. We were advised by our first CPA to be an LLP. Stephen and I are not married, so we were told to be a partnership. We were also told that we were exempt from being on payroll, but could pay ourselves owner distributions. So here's my question. On our 2018 1065, line 4 is blank, and line 14C equals gross non-farm income. Anyways.
The dollar amount, yeah. Yeah, ASAP, similar to what I just said. They're both on?
I don't know if the fiance's on.
Okay,
I
okay.
think
But Steven's on?
Steven, are you still with us?
Let's see if Steven's still with us, because if not, I'm gonna just we'll reply and tell them to go to the email that I did. Well, if Stephen's not with us still, then here's what you want to do. You need to become an S Corp ASAP. I think technically you could still elect that effective 1/1/19, but here's the hurdle you'd have to get over is, would your Secretary of State allow you to convert your LLP to an LLC effective 1/1/19, okay? So without getting into too much of the details, a lawyer can do that. It's not that you're backdating anything, okay? What you're doing is saying, we want to be this effective this, and if the Secretary of State will do it, I don't even mean go for it, then get that done. If not, I feel like you could definitely do it back to 1/1/20. And if you can't, then do it effective immediately. And if you can't, do it effective 1/1/21. And here's why. That dollar amount that you listed, okay, you divide it in half, or whether you're married or not, that amount that you did, each of you are going to be responsible for paying Social Security and Medicare tax on that, otherwise known as Social Security tax. So you ready for this? You are adding you're tacking on, I guess I'm just going to say it, almost $30,000 in self-employment tax. That's not even income tax. That's not even income tax. So go to the video that's, don't watch this if you're lazy. No one should be a sole proprietor. Of course, I'm being funny. But when I say no one should be a sole proprietor, I'm meaning you should be an S Corp. So immediately jump on that. CPAs, we definitely all have quote unquote differences of opinion, but I will tell you on that dollar amount, I'd be surprised if any CPA would disagree to be an S Corp. But here's the catch now, here's the catch. You will need to pay yourself wages, but now you get to control that amount. You won't be able to do wages at 12 grand, see the video. Okay, you need to do a reasonable wage, but let's just say that you cut what you have in half and you each do wages, but are you both working in it? Is one of you part-time, right? What's a reasonable wage? What would you pay someone to do what you're doing? Are you making coin but working 5 hours a week? So you'll be able to pay yourself based on what your effort is. You're not paying yourself a wage based on your status and the value you bring as an owner. You're paying yourself a wage based on what would you pay somebody else to do what you do as the employee part, right? Not the management, not the decisions, not being quote unquote the owner and the boss and the decision maker, but the employee that would then do the work that you're doing. What would you pay that employee? That's kind of a guide on how much you each would want to pay yourself. Now, if your final result was with your CPA that your wages would be in essence what you have on that partnership, then you probably need to stay a partnership, okay? But looking at that example, most of the time, wages might be reasonable at 50 grand, 48 grand, maybe 60 grand. And so if now you're only paying Social Security and Medicare, which is payroll taxes, on 120 grand, and now on, 70 or 80 grand, you're not paying that 15.3%, okay? You're saving a ton of money. So I do think the S Corp's just worth it. But, there's other planning things that go into it. But if all we're looking at is the details that you said, I'd be surprised if your CPA would say, yeah, you shouldn't be an S Corp. Now, your CPA may say, well, you're going to have payroll and you're going to have to do all these things, and go, that's fine, that's fine. You're going to say, well, you're going to have to pay a little extra, that's fine, because you're going to save way more than any fees that you're going to have, and it may be a hassle to do payroll, but it's worth it. So check out that video, please. And did we reply to her to let her know when? So anyways, all right. Hey, thanks for the question, and congratulations on.
I don't know if you want to read this next one because
Okay.
it's pretty personal.
Is this the one from Jump?
Yeah, and I'm trying to
Okay.
find
Let's
some.
see. All right, forgiven. Okay, well, I would say this. So tell Jump, reply to Jump, and I see exactly what you're getting at. And yes, if the long and short of it is, if you don't use it, you just give it back. Nothing goes wrong just because you didn't get it all forgiven, right? You missed something, and it's like, well, we got this dollar amount, and based on the ratios and this and that, $1,000 isn't forgiven. You're not fined for it, right? It's not a bad thing to not have something fully forgiven. It just means that you were running your business, you did what you needed to do, and then at the end of the 8 weeks, you spent it on payroll, you spent it on all these things, and way the numbers roll out, you might have some that's not forgiven, or you may have some that's left over. Excuse me. But go to JJ the CPA help.com, and I just in the middle of the night I created a page called Forgiveness. And on that is a video and also the calculation. I have 2 videos in a playlist on my YouTube channel, and the playlist is called PPP Forgiveness. And I walk you through it. So exactly what you're looking for. I've got an Excel spreadsheet to work your numbers.
Don't mind me, sorry.
To work the numbers. So go to that, because that'll really answer your question. Because I can tell by the way that you threw all the numbers in there that I think that would make a difference for you to actually see it. And then overall, it's just, hey, you got your payroll, you're paying the payroll. Easy enough. All right, hey, thanks for that question. I appreciate it. And then if you have a follow-up on that, let us know. Hopefully everybody knows we're getting a lot of emails, which we love, and so it is hard to sometimes get all the way back to it. So thank you so much for the question.
This is from Lord Nelson. I am almost a daily participant of your YouTube channel. This is Lord
Thank
Nelson.
you.
I truly thank you for all the great information you have provided. I've learned a lot, and I wish I can reciprocate by teaching you what I do so you can learn something new. Do you want to learn computer architecture and programming? Kidding aside, I do have a question. I have my PPP funding through Divvy. They have been excellent. I was approved by one of the banks. I'm a 1099 Schedule C, no employees, but now it's in the hands of the SBA for final approval. Given it was already in the SBA hopper, does that mean that I'm still in the process, or am I out of luck with funding gone?
Yeah, I don't know the true answer. Maybe ask your bank, but I think you're in the hopper. I think when they were like, hey, money's gone, it's for those that didn't get where you're at. And then I'll just throw out there, go to my playlist, PPP Self-Employed, and then on my website, go to the page that's PPP. And the reason I say that is I've got in there a calculation for you to figure out how to track your forgiveness, which is super easy for someone that is basing on Schedule C. And then the SBA did release on what's going to count. And there's a few surprising items in there in a good way. So check out those 2 things, the spreadsheet as well as the document list, as well as the videos that I did in the playlist PPP Self-Employed. But I'll just say this for those, when you're looking at how do you on a self-employed individual Schedule C, like how do you prove to pay yourself? You take what your net profit is on that Schedule C that you used to get the max loan. So you take that amount, divided by 52 to now break that into a weekly amount, times 8, and that's the automatic amount that will be forgiven. So you take, well, here's what I got for my loan, okay? That's one number. But here's my net income that was used to get this number. So here's my net income from Schedule C. I divide that by 52 times 8, and then that's going to give me the amount that we will get as automatic forgiveness. And then, of course, now you have your automatic forgiveness. Here's what you were, loaned. So you have a difference there to figure out. But I've got a list of what counts towards that.
And this one's from Scott Hill. It's just that FYI, PSA. I bought your book. My wife is a banker at a small bank in Utah. We have been watching your videos. Thank you. She has been working night and day to help the little guy. She worked all weekend, and she took her last call at 1 o'clock and up at 4. So many applications and not the manpower to type the applications. If you could please pass on to your viewers, please, please, please sign your application.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's part of I think the disappointment, and obviously his wife being a banker, I don't know that she's at the level where maybe she's making some of these decisions. But I do think the banks did make it a little harder on themselves from the standpoint of, maybe requiring documents that they didn't necessarily need. But I do know that when I was talking with the bankers when it first started, they were like, wow, this has taken a lot more time than we thought to just get in one application. And I think that kind of the rule of thumb was, it was an hour, maybe to put in one app. And then the problem is just like anything, but you're putting in all this information and then you're missing one thing. And, you got to kind of set it aside. Someone's got to contact them, then get it back into line. And so, yeah, definitely hats off. And, if somebody's working that many hours, they're in a position where, they don't deserve any criticism. A bank clearly is working their tail off if they're asking their staff, or the staff's volunteering, the team, right, the crew at the bank is working those kind of hours. And I think some of it came down to and the reason my plea, if you heard me, banging my fists at the beginning of the live, was, I think some of these larger banks, they're able to process things quicker, and it was almost kind of aggravating. They were processing maybe quicker because it was either they brought in extra staff, or they have more people, or they were able to just automate it. And from the perspective of now getting in the lead, right, they're able to do more. And then you have the smaller banks, regional banks, and as they are in a position to process, they're not able to maybe jump through them as quick, even though everybody's dealing with the same things. And that's where I just feel like if we could have it to where the next round of funding just goes to the regional, the smaller banks, a bank that, has seven locations, that's a nice regional bank. I think it would go a long way. So thank you for the efforts, and tell your wife thank you for helping out.
And the next one's from Rebecca. Hi JJ, I'm enjoying your videos. I saw the one for sole proprietors on how to account for the PPP funds. I was confused when you said to calculate 75% of the funds towards payroll. The SBA page says at least 75% of the forgiven amount must have been used for payroll. So couldn't we count 100% of the funds as payroll?
Yeah, and be sure to, sometimes when you're listening to a video, right, versus I did some recent videos where I pull up on the screen the calculation, and so that might be more of a reliable way to maybe hear what I'm trying to say, because maybe it's just not interpreted, or maybe I didn't explain it well enough. But here's how it works it's on the sole proprietor, right? Yeah. So on the sole proprietor, it's straight up this, and then the SBA guidance that came out on the 14th of April, you'll find this, which is also on my website, jjthecpahelp.com, on the PPP page, which is this. Take the net income of your Schedule C, divided by 52 times 8, and then that's the amount, period, the end, that counts as your payroll costs, period. And then anything above that is going to be for the other expenses, and I have a list on there, on that same website, a list of expenses that count above the payroll.
The next question is from Vicky, and an interesting thing about Vicky is a CPA who took one of JJ's seminars in Casper, Wyoming.
Oh wow, I love it.
And she really enjoyed it,
and
good. Said that you and Amanda keep it exciting. Some seminars are so hard to sit through for 8 hours. Hopefully you can visit Casper again, but she does have some questions. She's been listening to several of the YouTube videos and really enjoying hearing other CPAs' takes on PPP loans. These are some items I'm still not clear on and would hope you would give me your opinion. First, our restaurant bar operation was just approved for PPP yesterday and should fund this afternoon in a separate bank account set up by our bank. This was sent today, by the way.
Okay.
We have been shut down since March 19th by governor mandate with no income coming in. Our employees have been drawing unemployment since our closure, with the exception of our general manager and kitchen manager. We have a 2-week payroll due to both managers tomorrow, our regular bi-weekly pay date. Is it acceptable to pay that payroll from the PPP account since the pay date falls in the 8-week period?
Yeah, so great question. I've been visiting with the bankers because we've kind of had the same thing, and I'm dealing with the same thing. I've got payroll coming due on Monday, and really what that comes down to is, yes, it's fine to do that, because when you read carefully in the law, and they'll have to help us really define this hopefully a little bit more, but all that will count is 8 weeks of payroll. So even though, the payroll date's coming inside, PPP money comes, here's payroll date, so you're paying the payroll, boom, it comes from the separate account. I can't imagine that the bank would have any issues with that. And then, of course, I know that there can be shenanigans, but you guys aren't going to be playing shenanigans. But in essence, for those two individuals, they're going to continue to get paid, right? And so it'll all kind of come out in the wash in the end, so to speak. But then no more than 8 weeks would obviously count, meaning I'm sure that there's some and they thought, well, if here's my 8 weeks, I got my PPP money, but then right here, like right after, I got a payroll coming due. Well, I can pay that one, and then I got 2 more payrolls, and so there's not a way, as you probably would have guessed, to now somehow include pre-PPP time period in that. It's just going to be, it's an 8-week period. And I think what I've been telling, we work with a specific payroll company. What we've been just saying is, hey, listen, when the 8 weeks is up, whatever the date started, which is when the funding came, we just say, hey, payroll company, run us from that date to this date. It doesn't matter, if it's in 2 or 3 different payroll periods, what's that payroll? So I think it kind of comes out in the wash now. I think you might have some trickiness to work through if you were getting ready to make the payroll and there were a lot more employees on it that aren't going to be in the future. Then I think, you wouldn't want to do that, because the employees really aren't going to be working during that 8-week period. But if you anticipate that they're going to continue to work in that 8-week period, then I would do it. If they don't, then like if for whatever reason, if you paid them and then 2 days later it's like, they're going to go on unemployment, then technically, that dollar amount wouldn't be, forgiven, but the bank should be fine. And then just remember, I know you probably do, but the employer portion, which I think is kind of ridiculous, the employer portion of the, payroll taxes is not included. So one bank is not wanting the client to pull out that portion of the payroll, cash requirement. They're wanting them to just pull out the gross. And of course, the SBA did come and clarify for us on the 6th that for sure the dollar amount that is paid gross to the employee will count as the forgiveness amount. So I think that answers that. And we had a great time in Casper. What's interesting, when we went to Casper, Wyoming, that was in the fall of 2018. So yeah.
Nope. She is. Go ahead. Sorry.
She when we were in Casper, Washington, of course. Casper, Wyoming. Thank you. Most places we go, we have to rent a car unless we're just like right next to the airport. So this is when we go on our speaking tour on behalf of Surgeon. And still to this day, all the places that we've gone, we had the coolest rental in Casper, Wyoming, which was a Range Rover. So
the only thing they had on the lot.
Yeah, and what we thought was the coolest was in Casper, when we came in and we were landing, like near the runway was wildlife.
Yeah.
And then when we packed up and we got to the airport security was closed, and they opened up at a certain time, and all the flights kind of leave around a certain time. And so we just all were hanging out, and then we all went through security at one time. And then I do recall in Casper, we had a great CPA, and when I came in, I came in and I have a suit and tie on, and he had on like a hunting cap. And I thought, oh my gosh, why did I dress this way? Like only from, like, I'm overdressed. And, but he was the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Everybody was super nice, loved it. Just at first I thought, oh my gosh, but anyways, great people. And now I dress down. When we go, like when we went to Oregon, I didn't wear a suit and tie. I just wore a jacket and a shirt. So, all right. So, Vicky's next question.
We are preparing first quarter SUTA and workers' comp reports that are due April 30. Is it acceptable to pay the state taxes due April 30 for the first quarter out of the PPP account since the payment date falls in the 8-week period?
You know, on that one, it's a good question. I wouldn't, because, you know, that's clearly outside of it. I know that I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth in the sense of, well, I'm saying, well, I think it's okay for the payroll, but it kind of catches itself up. Where I think the SUTA being so clearly defined as first quarter, and even though it's due in that time period, of the 8 weeks, you know, that really wouldn't catch up with itself, so to speak. And the biggest reason I say that is that in first quarter, it sounds like there were, you know, a full house of employees. So that SUTA is not going to represent really what the SUTA tax would be in the 8 weeks. So when you're looking at the payroll, and I'm like, well, I think it's okay that the payroll that includes a pre-PPP era would work itself out okay, is that it's going to be the same throughout that 8-week era. Whereas that SUTA is going to be at a much higher amount, and it's for first quarter, and it's not going to represent what's going to happen in the next 8 weeks. So that's why I would say not to include that one.
All right, and last, we are hopeful the governor will allow us to reopen on April 30th and intend to rehire all of our employees within the next few weeks. Unfortunately, we don't expect our sales to be anywhere near our previous period sales, but intend to keep our employees at the same level of pay until that happens. But if it is far worse than we hope for, we may have to cut hours so that they can draw unemployment as well as part-time pay. We definitely hope not, since we do want full forgiveness if possible. After the 8-week period, if there are unforgiven loans to be set up as a loan for 2 years, do we still have to fund for payroll costs, utilities, and rent?
Yeah, that's a great question, because, you know, what I've said is, you know, it's a gift until it becomes a loan, and because it's a gift, or it's given, or it's a grant, whatever we want to, you know, whatever terminology works for us. So in those 8 weeks, we have a very tight, you know, margin of what it can go towards. And, you know, I've got a couple of videos that talk about it, and, you know, the SBA says, you know, it's a crime to use it for other purposes, which would be found out when you go before the bank. So for me, when I'm looking at clients that, you know, they got a max loan, but, you know, their payroll in 19 did this, right? So their average is really higher than what it is. So those clients are not paying raises. They're not going to do anything to increase, because the headcount thing will totally call them out, so to speak, at the end. But I'll bring it all the way back to say, for the 8 weeks, we are restricted to use it for what it was intended, you know, period. But then after the 8 weeks, it's basically, hey, it's a loan, and you can use it for whatever purposes you see fit. So unless the SBA changes that, but it seems very clear and obvious to me, I don't even think it's an opinion. But first 8 weeks, it's a grant. That's why it has the tight parameters. But then once you're past the 8 weeks, now it's a loan, and it can either just be handed back right then, or you have the 2 years. And so then once you hit the 8 weeks, if you needed to use it for, you know, cost of goods sold and other things, then I believe that you can without any issue, repercussion, because in essence, it's a loan.
All right.
All right. So Vicki, thank you so much for that. And yes, maybe we will run into you. And yes, it's been very exhausting. I mean, I haven't even really gotten to tax season. I mean, it's been completely on hold. And my clients have been wonderful, but part of it is, you know, I don't have staff at the office all the time. And so I couldn't really get anything fully done anyways.
Our next email is from Tony. And
Tony Reyes?
We'll see if you guys can see this. It's a little delayed, and then I'll show JJ. Come on. Come on. Look, Tony's having a drink.
I love it. I love it.
He said, thanks for the great work in the videos. Cheers,
I love
Tony.
Thank you.
That is it.
I love it.
We answered all of the questions that were
Okay.
in there. If you did send us in a question, and again, if you were asking, if you're a sole proprietor with no employees, can you qualify for PPP? And I just had to delete those questions, so, because they're just not applicable anymore. And so anybody who has asked questions should have feedback. We got a lot of things for screen printing, so thank you guys for sending those in. And then a lot of thank yous. And we got a couple more applications for the reality show.
Oh, awesome.
So we really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian McClemens says, got the PP money just now. Thanks for all your help through the process. Cheers.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Charlotte, you can't apply for the PPP right now at all.
Yeah. Let's see, where are the,
Michael Abrams, do you have a question? He asked if he could ask a question.
oh, yeah. Michael Abrams, our great friend from LinkedIn. He's a great supporter and a good friend. So did my speech at the beginning, we got our people on, or they all left?
I don't know, I haven't seen them all.
They were probably like, whatever.
No, they've been,
Just kidding.
I've seen a lot of regular people, so. Healthcare prepayment using PPP? That's
Oh.
from Andre,
Oh, are we at the bottom?
yeah.
Okay. How about this? If you, I guess I can't get to the, how do I get to the bottom? I'm just locked up.
Yeah, give it a minute.
What I was going to say is, if you've had a question in here, since we've need to just focus in on the emails. Hopefully we can get it redone here. Maybe just ask your question again.
And Andre said, shouldn't have said that. No, it's, I'm trying.
Oh, mine's locked up.
Card Shop Reality, I have your koozie over there. We haven't got it out, by the way, but it is there. Andre Xavier, healthcare prepayment using PPP.
Oh, only 8 weeks of whatever your health insurance will count. And so, definition of prepayment, I don't know, but at the same time, it needs to be that you actually had health insurance to pay over the 8 weeks. If you had already prepaid, it's okay.
No, I'm gonna get it.
Okay. If you had already prepaid, I do have some clients that are like, they pay, 4 months in advance or whatever. Well, I think you still need to write a check, and in essence, you'd still be paying for these 8 weeks. So if you had prepaid and it technically is already covering the 8 weeks, well, then the way you need to look at it is those prepayments that you made over here, well, it's prepaying after the 8 weeks, and you do need to pay it during the 8 weeks. You will need to write a check during the 8 weeks.
And Dax asked, can essential employers still take the ERC if they are working for the period 3/13 to 3/31?
Yeah, if they're less than 100 employees or less, but what we are saying right now is we need to hold tight, because if you're getting PPP money, we do just have a blanket statement. The IRS says you don't qualify for it. I'm hoping that they give us an effective date, and maybe they're just going to say, well, JJ, it's just you can't do it. Okay, but without going into all the ins and outs of that, what I would say is if you got PPP money, you need to hold tight. If you didn't get PPP money, then yes, and go through the video that I put together if you would, because there's a few ins and outs related to the form. So thank you for that.
Michael Abrams said, I heard that PR is net pay, not gross. I heard the forgiven PR is net pay, not gross.
Yeah, there was a misinterpretation of that for a short period of time, but then the SBA came out on, I think it was the 6th, which is on my website, jjthecpahere.com or jjthecpahelp.com. That it is the gross. It does not include the employer wages.
Our next question is from Charlotte. I'm a sole proprietor with 3 employees. PPP application is floating out there somewhere, and being a daycare provider, I'm considered an essential employee and cannot close my doors. Yet clients can leave me and not pay me. If I close my doors, I cannot claim unemployment. The only way I would be qualified for unemployment is if a family member or myself has the coronavirus. Not sure what to do now. Can I get employee retention credit?
Did she say she's not getting PPP? Or she's
PPP's application's floating around somewhere.
okay? Well, yeah. If you're not getting the PPP, then you definitely want to go get the ERC, and you would qualify for it either way. And then take a look at the other credits. I mean, if you have employees that are out that can't work for you, that have kids that are home themselves, or they have corona, there are some credits that came out of the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act that are better than the employee retention credit because it covers 100% of what you pay the employees, but that's absolutely not available until April 1st and after. So the employee retention credit is only what's available in the first quarter. So
Andre replied back and said it's company health care, not personal, and wants to know if he can use PPP funds to prepay health care premium for the year.
Oh, yeah, you won't. You'll be able to just 2 months is only going to count. So you could pay 2 months, and then that's it. And I wouldn't use PPP money to pay beyond that. If you, for whatever reason, have extra money after the 8 weeks, then you could pay beyond the 8 weeks, but just pay for the 8 weeks. Let's see, real quick here. So Nancy Hiller, I have an LLC partnership, and I do have 14A self-employment, but my CPA didn't do a SE form because he says I have only been paying income tax and not SS. Is that going to affect my PPP? Yes, but what you're going to need to do is make a decision or check with them, because you can't have 14A and then not pay self-employment tax at the individual level. You just can't. It's not possible. So what needs to happen is at the partnership level, it needs to be that there isn't box 14A, if that's the case, and it would be if you're not actively involved. Now, I'm gonna put that aside to say that what the SBA came out with on the 14th is that for the PPP, it is the partnership that would include the amount that is on 14A for the self-employment. So it would be up at that level, which means it kind of ignores the Schedule SE. I had been saying the Schedule SE because before that direction in SBA was saying, well, if you have self-employment income, you're eligible, you do it at the individual level, and then SBA realized that was creating a lot of duplication. So at the end of the day, if PPP is not available to you, you need to really reevaluate, because if you have line 14A, you are going to have to pay self-employment tax at the individual level. Someone needs to go up and fix that partnership return, because it's not really possible. It's like a matching, that the IRS has from that K1 down to your personal. The IRS is aware of that. So check with them, and maybe there was some, misunderstanding related to it, but don't let that one just ride.
Kiana says, my husband and I are an LLC S-Corp. Our wedding business has slowed 95%. Can my husband and I both go unemployment since there's not enough money to pay ourselves? Yeah,
if you didn't get the PPP money, absolutely. Go through the state. If you go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, which you don't provide any information to me about that. But if you, if you look on the unemployment page, you'll be able to go there. There's a link to the Department of Labor website. You click on that. The find your state, you click on that, and then it goes to your state to then go through the benefits, make sure that the federal's still on there. Okay, so Nancy Hiller said, approve PPP, I'm just waiting on the DocuSign. Yeah. So it basically, Nancy, then however it was applied for, what you probably want to figure out is, was it applied for up at the entity level, or was it applied at the individual level? And then that'll help determine how you got to move forward on this. Meaning, if you're going to take away the self-employment, you're going to take away box 14A, You can't now, because if 14A was used to determine the PPP at the partnership level, then you need to retain that, and then down at the individual level, you'll need to pay the self-employment tax.
Stephanie C says, applied for EIDL on 3/30, thought it got lost, received PPP 4/7, and then today received EIDL. Not sure who's to proceed.
Let's see, is she saying, have you received the PPP money yet?
She received it 4/7.
Oh, okay, so you got PPP and EIDL, okay.
She got PPP on 4/7 and then today received EIDL.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Well, go and look back, because if you had applied for your PPP, if you had applied for the EIDL before then, you were to disclose that. Now I should say, let me preface that. They updated the application to say if you applied for EIDL before April 3rd, you needed to disclose it. So go to your application, see if it was disclosed. Because if it was, then you're going to be in a situation with the bank where they're taking into account all of those funds. If it's not on your application, meaning you applied for that after 4/3, or on 4/3 or after, I believe, then you would be in a position where you need to use that for purposes that are not the same as the PPP. And those purposes are not payroll, not utilities, not health insurance, not SUDA or employer match or interest. But the EIDL can be used for cost of goods sold and overhead. So just do your best. It can either be through QuickBooks or, really do your best to try and document. An easy way to document it is if you have a separate account, let one separate account only be for PPP. If the EIDL is in your operating account. So you'll just have to figure out what's best for you to try your best to segregate it out. And then when you go to get your loan reviewed to determine forgiveness, you'll want to disclose to them that you had the EIDL, and then show them that it was used for different purposes. So, I'm glad that you got both, but that's how you would want to roll. So thanks for the question.
Troy says, my buddy got married and worked, filed 2019 taxes, joint with one kid. Their taxes were finished and taken for back taxes 2 weeks ago. He has W-2 and SSI. His portal says cannot determine eligibility at this time.
Yeah, so pretty much everybody's getting that. I haven't heard of one person or a client. You bet, Stephanie C. I haven't heard of one person or a client that indicated that they got any definitive eligibility feedback. It was just the same as what they got. My understanding is, that it's not supposed to go to back taxes. It's basically you're going to get the funds, and so I would anticipate that they'll get it as long as they were under those thresholds.
Matthew Conrad, CPA.
What's up, Matthew?
JJ, what have you heard about the IRS and trying to enter DD info on portal? I got several calls that the taxpayer cannot be found.
Yeah, so I did a video on it last night, and I brought up on it the IRS. So let me see if my understanding is they had like 173 million, I think I read somewhere. And I don't, it may be gone, because I'm looking here, get Coronis relief, make a payment, view your account, non-filer. Okay, get my payment. There it is. It looks like it just moved to the right. Get my payment. Okay, so I don't know of anybody that's walked all the way through and got where they could enter in their account information, but I think that's what it was meant for. Get my payment. You may need 19 if filed, and then 18's return, obviously, on the personal. So see if they're going to that. It's the irs.gov/coronavirus/get-my-payment. So get my payments, the section there. But I haven't heard of anybody actually getting it through, but I haven't heard anybody say that they couldn't get their bank account information entered in. So let me know what you come up with on that.
Carol, I have a client that just cannot verify identity. Anyone else get that? I think she's talking to the approve.
Oh, okay.
Maya Bush, I'm sorry I'm late to this. I'm sure you've answered this, but I'm a sole proprietor. I received my PPP in my business account. Can I write myself a check to be deposited in my check account weekly? On get my payment, I got notice that I am eligible for stimulus, but there is no date of release.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, good. I'm glad you're going to get the stimulus, and that, of course, that has no bearing on the PPP, and I'm glad that you got the PPP as well. As it relates to how to allocate or determine how much is your wage cost, just like what you're indicating, you take the net income on your Schedule C that you use to get this loan. So whatever line 31 there was on Schedule C, take that divided by 52 times 8, and that's your automatic loan forgiveness amount. And there's no indication in there that you have to spend it each week. And so in essence, there's the dollar amount that is available. If you wanted to, divvy it out a little bit, you could do that, but there's going to be no, as I understand it, no requirement by the SBA to prove that portion of the amount. So it's not take your loan divided by 52 times 8, it's taking that Schedule C line 31 divided by 52 times 8, and then that would be the amount that you would be automatically forgiven. And then go to my website, jjcpahelp.com, and there's a page on there that gives you a nice breakdown of the expenses. And it's just straight from the SBA guidance or FAQ, a list of the expenses that are included kind of for those other expenses, which includes gas for the car, if you're leasing the car, the rent. There's some couple of things that are included in utilities that don't seem like utilities to me, but the SBA is including it. Now that's just for the sole proprietor. So good question on that.
It's 627.
Oh, okay.
Wendy Thayer, thanks to you, my PPP was funded today. Many thanks. My office is 100% closed until I don't know when. My employee is on unemployment. Can I pay myself? And when the office opens, bring the employee back.
Nice. Love it.
David, I did it, JJ. If you have had a debit to pay taxes, you update the DD information, did it for several people today.
Oh, awesome. Okay, awesome.
Jen, I didn't include PPP calculation on my pay since business was a loss. Am I able to use the PPP money from employee wages to pay myself for 8 weeks?
Actually not. The SBA kind of made that clear, so you could go ahead and get on the unemployment.
And Troy, so I'm assuming people on SSI and W-2s are getting their payment wherever their benefits go. Thanks for answering.
Yep, Troy, they indicated on the IRS website on the non-filer page just that. They'll know where it goes based on the SSI or the Social Security.
Shriver Tax, JJ, sorry if you've already answered this. Please interpret the CARES Act Title I, Section 1102 PPP mortgage payments. The word interest isn't listed under borrow requirements.
Well, that's interesting. I hadn't paid attention, I guess, to maybe that nitty-gritty part. So I will look at that. If you don't mind, will you just copy and paste that and email it to me so that I can look at that offline? Looks like Jamie Rodriguez approved for PPP. Thank goodness. Glad you got in under the wire. Troy, can you use Schedule C sole prop, get any IDL and unemployment since it's 1K? It kind of just depends on the amount of the PPP. So assuming that you got PPP, you would then, in essence, allocate whatever a dollar amount towards living there, then EIDL, then unemployment. If all you got was EIDL, I'm sure you could just get on the unemployment right away, because you can use the EIDL for other purposes. And so if you didn't get PPP, you're getting the EIDL, the 1,000. Go get some unemployment benefits.
All right, well, it is 6:30, so So thank you guys for tuning in and staying with us. We really appreciate it. We had a wonderful turnout today. We got a lot of questions answered. And I know that today is kind of a dark cloud day for many of you guys, and I'm sorry about that. We are thinking about you, and hopefully some more funds will be headed our way soon.
Yeah, Dark Waters, you're right in your answer. It is, the law said day of origination, and then SBA came out and said it's the date that the funds were received. So I love it. Thank you, Carol. Thank you to everybody. Gonna jump off. All right, well, listen, really appreciate everybody. Jason, thanks again. Got me fired up. Hopefully, maybe some people listen, just giving that we just want the next round to go to the smaller businesses, sole proprietors. So do what you can to spread the word on that. And really appreciate you all. So John, thank you, and Kira and Carol and Mike. Thank you so much. Card Shop Reality, thank you so much. Cheryl, thank you. Box Seller, I got you out of events today. I think they will still offer the loan. Probably not on the PPP just because it's dried up unless you already were in the hopper. Brian, hey Brian, hadn't forgot about you on that question. Jamie, thank you. Gene McIntyre, look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Tina, thank you. I really appreciate that. Dark Waters, hey, thanks for everything. Thank you again. Really means a lot. Really, really appreciate it. Nancy, let's see, just finished personal and did incorporate in January, so had him change. Okay, good. Let's see, Paul, thank you so much. Wendy, Alan, Brian, thank you. Maya, Card Shop Reality, thank you again. I appreciate that. R1S2, Gonzalez, EIDL is not forgivable. You just don't have to pay it back. Fred, thank you. Brian, Fred, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sitting through my initial, whatever you want to call that there. WH, thank you. Notlikin, CCM, whatever. Brian, thank you. Yes, Paint Smith. I'm in the hopper for the PPP. They called today. Thank goodness. I'm glad to hear that. Fred Sims, CPA. Thank you so much from Dallas.
I don't know if he's still on or not, but God Dozer said that you get 20% off of him digging out for your leg.
I love it. Thank you, God Dozer. I really appreciate that. So Fred Sims, CPA, thank you so much. Maybe we'll meet one day down there doing seminars. Kay Gonzalez, thank you so much. Be on tonight watching the late night vids with JJ. I love it. Well, hey, thanks to you all. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Friday, we won't need to go live on the weekend. And maybe what we'll hear is that we're going to get some new funding. And maybe it'll be reserved. Silver Fox, what email do I send you the info? JJ at jjthecpahelp.com. Let's see, JJ at jjthecpahelp.com. I think I got that right in here, JJ at jjthecpahelp.com. All right, Jen, thank you so much. Richard, any bank's working faster than others on the PPP? Richard, they've run out. So Jen, thank you. Brian, when in Berryville, Virginia, we got you dinner. I will take you up on that. Thank you so much. Richard Lee, let's see, been since the day it opened with Chase. Carol, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. In self, yeah, Shriver Tax, you bet. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate it. It means a lot when we get peers coming on, and appreciate all of that. So, all right. Well, listen, you all have a great night. Thank you so much for everything. And I'll probably have a few other videos coming out as it relates to kind of the latest. So, all right, Dixie, really appreciate it. Cotton Patch, just getting ready to get off. Thank you so much for everything. And you all have a great one. So thanks again.